2024 NCAA March Madness matchup between Baylor University and Colgate University. The road to glory. As the annual March Madness frenzy set in across the nation, all eyes turned towards the hardwood for the most captivating three-week stretch of the entire sports calendar. Among the 68 teams battling for supremacy were Baylor University and Colgate University, two programs seeking to etch their names into tournament lore. For the Bears, they came in battle-tested from another rigorous campaign through the nation's toughest conference, the Big 12. Head coach Nicki Collins' squad had finished third during the regular season with a 23-8 record before making a spirited run to the conference tournament semifinals. Leading that charge for Baylor was junior guard Didi Richards, who had emerged as one of the most dynamic two-way threats in all of women's college basketball. The 5 feet 9 inches Houston native stuffed the stat sheet by averaging 16.5 points, 6.8 rebounds, 5.4 assists and 2 steals per contest. Didi is just a winner, plain and simple, Collins stated. She has that entire package, the skill set, the IQ, the burning competitive fire. She makes everyone around her better. While Richards grabbed most of the headlines, she was complemented by a skilled supporting cast. Twin posts Sarah Andrews and Elizabeth Balogun provided an imposing interior presence, with the 6 feet 4 inches tandem controlling the glass and altering shots at the rim. On the perimeter, veteran guards Caitlin Bickle and Melissa Miller brought incredible experience from having played major minutes in Baylor's 2021 National Championship game appearance. The Bears had been seasoned by March's bright lights before. Their impressive collection of veterans and talented newcomers was being counted on to make another sustained tournament run. As for the Colgate Raiders out of the Patriot League, they too featured dynamite backcourt play and an experienced core that was no stranger to March's grandest stage. Senior point guard Keena Hilliard had been simply sensational all season long in orchestrating the Raiders' high-powered offensive attack. The diminutive 5 feet 4 inches floor general led the nation in assists at 8.4 per game while also chipping in 13.6 points and 1.8 steals a night. Keena is the ultimate leader and extension of our coaching staff on the floor, said Colgate head coach Ghani Hunter. She has supreme confidence and moxie for someone of her stature. There's no moment too big for her. Hilliard's main running mates included sweet shooting wings Bailey Goody and Alexa Nace-Sens, who combined for over 26 points per contest through their precise off-ball movement and insatiable three-point shooting prowess. If defenses overcompensated to take away the three ball, they could be equally punished by the interior dominance of junior post Haley Greer. The 6 feet 3 inches Greer averaged a double-double at 16.8 points and 10.2 rebounds per game while swatting away 4 shots per contest to make her one of the nation's preeminent two-way forces in the front court. Notching impressive non-conference wins over Ohio State, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse, the Raiders had proven themselves capable of competing with teams from major conferences throughout a 27-win campaign. This particular March, these two high-powered offenses would collide in an intriguing second-round matchup in the Greenville region. A spot in the Sweet 16 was up for grabs between the balanced firepower of Baylor and the prolific three-headed monster of Colgate's backcourt. The showdown begins. The raucous crowd inside Bon Secours Wellness Arena in Greenville, South Carolina was split nearly evenly between Baylor's proud fan base and the loyal contingent that had made the 700-plus-mile trek from upstate New York to support the Raiders. The Bears came out looking to flex their interior muscle early against the smaller Colgate lineup. They established deep low-post position and pounded the ball inside to the towering Andrews, who had her way against single coverage. The junior center scored Baylor's first 8 points, using regiment spins, up and under moves and pure power around the basket. Andrews was bodying defenders and crashing the offensive glass with reckless abandon. Baylor seemed to be well on their way to seizing an early double-digit advantage at the first media timeout. But the resilient Raiders refused to go away quietly. Coach Hunter shrewdly made a defensive adjustment, employing sophomore Jada Roberts to provide stouter post defense as the team's undersized but tenacious muscle off the bench. Roberts was able to at least get a body on Andrews while also shadowing Balogun with weak side support. With the interior somewhat neutralized momentarily, Hilliard, Goody and Naismith went to work from the perimeter. That ultra-talented trio put on an absolute clinic, slithering around screens and burying a barrage of deep bombs to power a 16-2 Colgate run that put them ahead 23-18 late in the opening quarter. Colin was forced to burn 2 timeouts in succession in hopes of slowing down the Raiders' momentum. Coming out of that stoppage, Hilliard briefly headed to the locker room with an ankle injury following an offensive foul collision. The respite seemed to settle Baylor down as they ratcheted up their defensive pressure, extending out to frustrate Colgate's three-point shooting stroke. Suddenly the Bears were getting deflections and runouts, which fueled their transition game. Over the final 5 minutes of the opening period, Baylor went on a frantic 19-3 spurt, beginning with Diddy Richards weaving through the defense for a gorgeous Eurostep layup and ending in a Richards triple after a nifty kick-out pass from Balogun. When the dust settled on that white-hot first-quarter shooting exhibition on both sides, Baylor had managed to cling to a 37-26 advantage behind a dozen points from Richards. Coach Hunter didn't panic with his superstar Hilliard forced to head to the locker room. He had complete faith in Naismith and Goody to keep pushing the tempo and maintain Colgate's free-flowing offensive barrage. The Raiders continued to live by the three-ball, delivering one of the best shooting clinics in NCAA tournament history over the second period. The pair combined to bury 7 triples over a staggering 8-minute stretch, rekindling memories of BYU's epic three-point shooting display in the 2011 tournament. What made things even more remarkable was the Raiders' sheer efficiency beyond the arc. Most of the triples came in the flow of the offense as Colgate used excellent off-ball screening, cutting, and ball movement to generate clean looks that they simply could not miss. On the other side, Baylor seemed completely discombobulated by the barrage, struggling to keep players in front while also overcompensating to run shooters off the three-point line. The Bears failed to recognize shooters in transition and paid the price and surrendered open looks time and again. The deficit dwindled rapidly as Colgate's shooting broke the game wide open and turned it into a 70-57 lead by halftime in a true March Madness spectacle. The tide turns. Coach Colin could only shake her head in bewilderment entering the locker room at half. Her squad had played reasonably well on both ends, yet still somehow found themselves staring at an absolutely unthinkable 13-point hole. Baylor's players were frustrated but not defeated. They well understood Colgate could not possibly keep up their video game scoring pace all afternoon with that sort of unconscious shooting stroke. Richards took it upon herself to deliver a spirited reminder about maintaining their defensive intensity and playing with a sense of calm and poise. "We got this," the junior told her teammates. "Their shooting is crazy right now, but that won't continue if we just keep guarding, rebounding, and making them work on every single possession. We need to stay composed and get some stops to start the third." Sure enough, the tables immediately turned on the defensive end for Baylor right after halftime. Richards masterfully bodied up and kept Goody and Naismith from having a clean look from the perimeter on 4 straight possessions. Meanwhile, Andrews and Balogun were immense on the glass, clearing misses and sparking the transition game. The result was a 9-2 burst to open the third quarter scoring for the Bears, quickly trimming the deficit down to 72-66. "Their size and physicality really started to wear on us," Colgate's Hunter said afterwards. "We couldn't get anything easy in the paint and it disrupted our free-flowing movement away from the ball on the perimeter." The Raiders continued to struggle against Baylor's renewed defensive pressure, which further cranked up as they deployed full-court trapping looks. Baylor deployed the 6 feet 4 inches Balogun at the point of attack and completely suffocated Colgate's guards, who were unable to operate in typical free-flowing fashion. Hilliard, who had gamely returned from her first half ankle injury, was clearly hobbled and picked up her 4th personal foul with over 5 minutes remaining in the third quarter. By that point, Baylor's lead had swelled to 77-73 as the momentum had shifted completely. The Bears continued to pour it on in the fourth, turning their efficient defensive stands into quality shots in transition or in the half court. Richards was in full maestro mode as the floor general, collecting 3 assists during a pivotal 12-3 run that extended the margin out to 93-82 with under 7 minutes remaining. At that point, Baylor's defense also had Colgate completely discombobulated and rushed. The Raiders rushed perimeter shots early in possessions and were unable to solve the Bears' switching and hedging tactics. It led to a series of turnovers and runouts for easy Baylor buckets to continue to balloon their lead. Despite their Warriors mentality, the Raiders simply had no answer for Baylor's size and physicality over the final 15 minutes of the contest. Diddy Richards was the consummate floor leader while Andrews and Balogun owned the painted area in the 106-91 victory. When the final horn mercifully sounded, it was Richards who earned raucous Did I MVP chants from the Baylor fan base after submitting a ridiculously complete stat line of 24 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists and 5 steals. "We've been in plenty of NCAA tournament wars before," Richards said afterwards. "So when adversity struck, we just locked in and imposed our will for 40 minutes. This team has no quit in us." For Colgate, their brilliant season came to a disappointing finish after such a scintillating first-half shooting performance. Goody poured in 26 points while Naismith added 24 and Hilliard contributed 16 points and 8 assists despite her injury. "I'm just so proud of this group for the heart and grit they demonstrated all season long," said Coach Hunter. "We battled to the very end against an elite team, and although we came up short today, this run to the NCAA tournament as a mid-major program is something we'll always cherish." Baylor's victory march continues. Fresh off their hard-fought second-round battle with Colgate, Baylor had little time to rest on their laurels. Next up was a Sweet 16 showdown in Greenville against betting number 2 seed Maryland in what promised to be an epic clash of talented, battle-tested programs. Over an illustrious coaching career already spanning more than 2 decades, Brenda Fress had led the Terrapins to an impressive 16 Sweet 16s, 5 Final Fours and the 2006 National Championship. This particular squad featured an All-American backcourt duo of senior Angel Reese and junior Diamond Miller that ranked among the nation's most prolific scoring tandems. Reese was a do-it-all force at 6 feet 3 inches who led Maryland in scoring at 18.3 points per game while also pulling down 11.5 rebounds and dishing out 3 assists a night. She was a handful at all 3 levels, on the interior, off the dribble and even stepping out to stroke the 3 ball. Her running mate Miller was no slouch either at 17.2 points, often outscoring Reese by attacking the rim in transition and with her smooth pull-up game in the mid-range area. What made the pair even more dangerous was their ability to effortlessly play off one another, with either player being capable of initiating the offense and making plays for themselves or the other. Their pick-and-roll chemistry was almost telekinetic. Baylor's defense would be put to the ultimate test in trying to at least slow down Reese and Miller, as the backcourt duo had combined for over 50 points in the Terps' wins over Vermont and Notre Dame to reach the Sweet 16. Still, Coach Collin was incredibly confident her team's disciplined defensive principles and depth on the interior would allow them to stay attached to Maryland's dynamic perimeter scorers all night long. "We can throw length and a variety of looks at them," said Collin. Our posts will hedge hard to flatten out driving angles and force them to make kick-out passes. If they get loose for some tough two-point looks, we can live with it. But our guards and wings have to meet that pressure, make their catches difficult. The chess match between the seasoned tacticians was a fascinating one from the opening tip, as Fress and Colin exchanged strategic adjustments after feeling the other out through the first quarter. Baylor started in a more conventional 2-3 zone look, forcing Reese to serve as more of a facilitator and distributor against the compacted interior defensive spacing. When Maryland brought shooters like Lavender Briggs and Cheyenne Sellers into the game, the Bears switched to more of a switching man strategy, with the versatile Richards sticking with Reese each trip. The initial chess moves resulted in a nip and tuck opening stanza that saw Miller explode for 12 points to offset 8 points from Richards. The freshman held a slim 22-21 lead after 10 minutes. In the second quarter, Maryland opted for a heavy dose of high pick and rolls, with Reese and Miller relentlessly going at whoever Baylor switched onto them. Briggs provided instant offense with a trio of triples, while the threat of the screeners kept Baylor's backline honest. Colin recognized things were getting dicey and reverted to an occasional zone look in an attempt to shrink the driving lanes and stay more compact against the Miller-Reese two-player game. Chaos started to ensue for the Bears, though, as they struggled with the change-up in defensive philosophies and alignments. Meanwhile, Reese had an extremely productive period with 11 points by snatching up offensive rebounds and spraying out for her trademark pull-up three balls. A 12-2 blitz by the Terps saw them grab a 42-33 lead late in the half, prompting Colin to burn 2 timeouts and get her squad re-centered. They responded by closing the final 2 minutes of the half on an 8-2 run of their own, beginning with a huge Richards and one and capped off by a big 3-ball from Melissa Miller just before the buzzer. With the game close at 44-41 entering halftime, the third quarter would become a decisive swing period. Viewing their previous defensive quagmires as essentially overthinking the approach, Baylor leaned into their base man-to-man principles after the break. They consistently hedged and recovered against ball screens to take away the middle and make the catches tough. When Maryland reversed the ball or managed to create angled shot line, the Bears displayed incredible effort and discipline to stunt, contest and offer weak side support without fouling. Suddenly the Terps' trademark dribble penetration avenues were closed off and they struggled to generate quality looks against Baylor's hounding, fundamentally sound defensive stance. "We just stuck to what we knew," Diddy Richards said. "Forget all the adjustments and special schemes, we're simply elite defensively when we're bought into our basic principles of effort, communication, and contest shots." All that effort and execution naturally fueled the Bears' transition offense, where Richards was utterly spectacular in the open floor as the orchestrator. She accounted for 12 points and the assist on 5 other buckets as Baylor built their advantage out to 69-60 through 3 quarters behind a game-changing 28-16 period. To Maryland's credit, they managed to keep the game within striking distance. Reese and Miller continued to compete valiantly on both ends, keeping the Bears from ever delivering a true knockout blow. Unfortunately, elite scoring opportunities remained fleeting against the suffocating Baylor defensive intensity. Matters took an ominous turn for the Terps when Miller crumpled to the hardwood with 8:22 left in the fourth following another empty defensive stand after she'd absorbed a physical blow on the previous offensive possession. She tried to walk it off but ultimately had to be helped off the floor, noticeably grimacing and struggling to put weight on her right leg. Miller's injury stalled Maryland's last-ditch comeback bid. Fress attempted to go small.